Rock the Ripple. Rock the Ripple. The Rock the Ripple podcast with Nereeda McInnes.
Let's do this. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Rock the Ripple podcast. I'm your host, Nereeda McInnes. As always, it is so awesome to be here with you. And today is a very special day because not only am I just sitting here with an awesome person next to me, this person is Dale Holmes. Welcome, Dale, to the show. How was that? No, that was terrible.
Oh, that was beautiful. Thanks, mate. What's up? Nah, it's good to have a chat.
Yeah.
Probably planned it for a while anyway, yeah. So
yeah, it's
That's
been
rough
a
enough.
long time in the making. And I feel like we might chat each other's faces off, and there's we can go anywhere with this. So now to everyone who's been following along with the podcast, by the way, this was built on the premise, like I have write down so many sticky notes and so many ideas in notebooks and things like that. And the podcast started with me just grabbing one sticky note and just jamming on that and just seeing whatever will come through. And on those sticky notes, of course, I would write down names of people that I want to chat to. And Dale, you are, of course, one of those people on the sticky notes. So you're the first one. You're popping the Rock the Ripple cherry for the interviews. How do you feel about that?
Oh, well, that's good. Yeah, did you tick that off the list? Who else you got on there?
Oh, I've got so many. I've got Alicia, Donovan. I've got other people. Yeah, so many people that I've spoken to before. James Gilliland, I spoke to him probably about 3 years ago. Just so many different names. But yeah.
Yeah, also, I don't think you'll have any trouble getting them on. They'll do it. Well, you
Yeah,
got Jared,
So yeah, that was I think about 3 years ago when I was back doing interviews then. So as I was saying to you off air, like I haven't done an interview chat chinwag for a while, so I'm getting my socks back on. What do you say? What's the saying? Wait, you're getting your legs back? Oh, there's a saying, Dale.
yeah, dipping your feet in the water. I don't know. No, that's not it.
It's
Yeah,
not it.
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, get your your legs back. You know, like when nah, I'm not going to remember it. It'll come to us halfway through.
Get Donovan on there. Donovan be good.
Yeah, no, I've chatted to him before, and he's keen as well. I think it's just timing, isn't it? All the time with these things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh well, hey, I haven't had a chat with Donovan for a long time.
No.
But I've been watching him a bit. He's been doing these lives because they've been having these events in Canberra, and I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah, well, I haven't been as online the last sort of few, maybe a month or so, but I haven't seen his lives, and he usually does some pretty bloody good ones, doesn't he?
I like the way Donovan, like the way he thinks.
Yeah, same.
He's very balanced, actually. I like him.
Yeah. I'll have to get a chat. Maybe get the three of you on.
Yeah.
Right, that includes me, obviously, the three of you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm down.
Yeah. So, all right, well, Dale, before we jump into everything, so for the people who don't know who you are or much about you, do you want to give a bit of an intro and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, like I struggle like putting a label. I don't know. I'm just I'm like a floating bit of a nomad at the moment. I've just been yeah, I guess I don't know. What do you call me? I make like videos and stuff every now and then. Kind of. I don't I guess I don't structure kind of anything. I sort of go with the flow and just whatever comes up on the day, if and when it comes up, I'll speak about. I don't really like being called an activist or an advocate or anything like that. I'm just kind of using my voice to express myself, I guess, is what I like. So yeah, and I guess, yeah, what have I mean, like I had a pretty strong focus on ritual abuse sort of stuff. I was doing a lot of videos on that years ago. And that was, I guess, really, it was when all the stuff pandemic started in 2020, and I guess I was trying to like maybe shock people into, yeah, no, if the elites are capable of this sort of stuff, then they probably don't have your health. They probably don't have your health, your health in, what's the word? I can't even speak properly.
Best interest. Is that
Yeah.
what you got for?
Yeah, so I think
Interest at heart?
I kind of was doing that, but then yeah, I guess I focused on like a bit of esoteric stuff, um and then just the day-to-day conspiracy, the
Mm,
global conspiracy. But yeah, like trying to have a bit of a balance. I guess like that's my motive, has been like to show people the surface level agenda,
mm,
and then show that that's an expression of something much greater, and then
mm.
that basically takes you back to self, all of it really. And exposing all the dark stuff too, it just really, it brings you back to the polarity of evil, right? So I guess that was my motivation. I don't know what you'd call me. I don't know.
Well,
But,
call you Dale.
yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I
But
think.
yeah, I mean, I guess it's probably like the same as you too. Like I know you've been aware of this information and that for many years, and yeah, it was a struggle, wasn't it? Years ago, we basically, you had to really live in two worlds back then. Um,
Mm,
and I think it was more like an interest and like a hobby. It was like an obsessive hobby, but like 'cause all I was doing was
yeah.
researching for years, and I mean like hours and hours every day for like decades, and then you kind of just kept it quiet, didn't you? And then you'd throw a few lines at a party to certain people, and occasionally because I guess you were always looking for someone.
Yeah.
It was just like they didn't have to know all this stuff, but just be a little bit open.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, cool, I can have a conversation with someone about. I get that. That was the beauty of like when 2020 happened, was um, you can now have these conversations with so many more people.
Mm,
And people think that like nothing's happening and there's no shift taking place, and you would know too, like if you looked back many years ago, it's
mm.
blatantly obvious there's been a huge shift in the collective consciousness.
Oh, massive. It's massive. And I can totally relate. Like you'd be looking at for those people at the parties that you can
Yeah,
have those conversations with, because they're just like they're just so mind expanding, and you just, I don't know, it's not that, yeah, any conversation is better or worse, but it's just you've been looking and researching and obsessing over this stuff, and it's great to be able to have a chat with someone who has looked at that stuff as well. And I mean, there's so many layers as well, let's be honest.
yeah. But it's because you had to. I mean, like I don't know what you were like, but like with me, I grew up in like country town, and it was pretty much like sport and then drinking. That was pretty much hobby, right? And like I liked that kind of stuff, but there was always I always was into this other stuff on the side, and
Mm,
yeah, it's like I mean to fit in, you kind of I went out and did all the stupid shit, but then there was like this other part of myself that I was kind of hiding from people. Like I would express it, but you
mm,
just get shut down. Or I got shut down all the time. You're an idiot. You don't know what
yeah.
you're talking about. Dale's fucking lost it. Um, but yeah, it kind of it was good. Like when 2020 happened again too. Like all these people that hung shit on me for years, are all like reaching out, going, "Oh, what do you think's happening?" What do
Yeah.
you... 'Cause
What do you
even
know now?
they could kind of sense that something was really off,
Mm,
um, and that they were being lied to. So it's, but I mean, it's just good. Like David Icke always said, um, if you speak what you know to be true, it doesn't matter how ridiculous it sounds to, to like mainstream society. Eventually, if it's true, then it will be proven to be so eventually. So it's you just gotta you speak it when it's uncomfortable, because like at the moment it's not uncomfortable to speak the truth now. It's very open,
mm,
but the early days are really, there was like a lot to lose, and it was really uncomfortable, and it can sever relationships and stuff like that.
mm,
And but yeah, like to me, I've almost gone back now. I'm very very much hooked into just normal life, and like I've seen this huge distorted polarity within the truth and freedom movement, right? And then to me, it's just drawn me right back to center again, where I'd almost rather engage with the the so-called normie than some of those on the on the fringe of the conspiracy or freedom movement or whatever you want to call it. Do you know what I mean? It's interesting how you get pushed and pulled.
Because it can get really extreme on that side as well, and that's not where you want to be. Like you've done the hero's journey, and we're always doing it as well, and then you've come back to center, and you're walking in two worlds, aren't you?
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, it's again too, like with the hero's journey or the completion when you re-enter the new world, or you re-enter the old world at the end, is you're the master of two worlds. So and that's all that is the balance point, because you got to operate, because there's so many that have this belief that you need to run away from the system. I'm not going to be part of the system, and that's a real distortion too, because you are part of the system, and while the system exists, you're part of it. You can't escape that. So it's the master of two worlds is being able to operate in both while still holding your integrity at the same time. And I think, like, with the central bank digital currency and stuff that they're going to bring in, that's going to be one of the ultimate challenges of being the master of two worlds.
Yeah.
How do you navigate that? Because I don't see that being a permanent thing. I think it'll come in for a brief amount of time, and again, it's just another test. Like, how do you navigate around that when that comes in? And like, I don't really see a right or wrong. Like, how much do you engage if they bring in a digital currency? Like, if there's no way out of that, and if you wanted to be setting up systems and communities and stuff like this, you probably should have been doing that 2 decades ago, where people are like frantically, they're like, oh, we're going to create a community. It's like, I don't know how you're going to have to be reliant of some sort on the outside system, right? So
yeah. How do you see that all coming in? Like, when do you see, I mean, yeah, it's going to be interesting, because we won't really know how it's going to play out. And that's, I guess, part of the movie that we're all in, the game of life, that we get to see how it's unfolding. Even though we create our own reality, of course, it's still this unfoldment of everything. Hey.
Well, I mean, it has to take place, and like, it will take place just purely on the science of a fair currency. It has to collapse anyway. But I mean, like, I don't like talking about when. I don't think it really matters. But they do it on the yearly solar calendar at the harvest time, which is October and November in the northern hemisphere. That's why they have the big Sabbath date, which is Halloween, 31st October.
Yeah, that's
like, because the Sabbaths, like, you split the calendar into an 8-part calendar of the year. That's one of the key Sabbaths, and that's the harvest. That's why they did child sacrifice at that time. But that's it's connected in with the economy. It's usually around Libra season too, or that. So I don't know. I think I've always said if they're going to do it, well, when they do, it'll be October, November. So, but I kind of, like, a lot of people are saying it's going to collapse this year, but I would suggest that if you're following US politics and that there's that they wouldn't want to collapse the system while they've still got the election to run. You know what I mean? So it could even be next year, and that's a painful prospect.
When you want things to happen, and
Mum keeps asking me, she's like, "When's the collapse?" Like, Mum was stocking up before the pandemic for the potential collapse.
Yeah, she's still got stuff there from 2 years ago, doesn't she?
She's given up. She's plowing through it all now because she's eating it. All this shit food that you'd never eat. Because I was buying like fucking tin baked beans, all this sort of crap that, like, I never eat, and then because it was never going to be tempting to eat, because I would never eat that crap.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, like, I went Dad's the other day and he's eating like tin spaghetti. Oh, like, that's never been eaten in their house ever. Like, just sitting there like eating. It's like, we're gonna get rid of this shit.
That's awesome. That's great. Far out. There is so much that I want to chat to you about, because obviously I think the one thing, people who know you and watch and listen to you, I think they really resonate with how you present your information, because you're just having a chat and you're just sharing what comes through. But the amount of research that you've done, like you said at the start, is just phenomenal. And the way that you retain information, to me, just blows my mind, because I'll take in so much. Like, I've gone down so many different rabbit holes. Then I can explain some things, but you remember the names, you remember, like, there's just so much there. And I guess, like, what makes you just, I guess I just wanted to really just say that that's just phenomenal in itself. And I guess it's because you're passionate about it, isn't it?
I don't know. I always think you retain stuff that, I mean, my retention's actually really shit with a lot of things.
Is it?
Like,
Other things, yeah.
But like, if I'm really into something, I'll retain it. But I also think, like, if you watch videos, say if like someone's watching this, you might remember snippets, but
Yeah.
but like a lot of the stuff that like I talk about is it's not new stuff. It's like information that I had years ago, and it's stuff I got out of books.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you're the same. I think everyone's got different learning styles and that. But for me, like when I read something, it sinks in.
Mm.
But I used to do like a lot of reading and then like highlighting and then going back and rereading stuff as well. And I think I don't know. Do you remember like at school and stuff? Remember they used to go, okay, go home and study, and I'm like, I don't like. I was never taught how to study. I don't. What do you do?
I guess you just, do you just read the
Yeah,
books and just
but
like write it down?
I do remember like our Year 12 English exam. We had to do 'cause you had to do like 2 novels, and I wasn't really interested in like fictional books. I just didn't really like it. But
Mm.
yeah, so you had to remember like 8 quotes from the book by rote.
Mm.
It's like I didn't know how to study, so you just write it and write it and write it and read it. And I get that is the modern education system. It's not really intelligence; it's your ability to retain information. So
Yeah.
even like you saying, like that, like that, I'm probably good at that. There's huge difference between intelligence and wisdom.
Mm.
Sometimes I think someone that's really good is someone that's got wisdom, but then has the ability to express that, because sometimes you just know stuff, but you can't verbalize it.
Yeah.
I think there's that kind of like what you were getting to, like you're like, I've got this understanding, but I just can't. How do I articulate it into words? And that's why
Yeah.
I mentioned David Icke at the start. The reason I've loved his work so well is because he's got the intellect, the wisdom, and he has the ability to express it, and in such
Yeah.
a way I love people like that.
Yeah, he just does it in a way that's just, it's simple for people to understand. Like, you don't need to be a scientist, rocket scientist, or some sort of, he just puts it in simple terms. Yeah. I usually,
They're
if
not, his books aren't intellectual.
No.
All right, anyone, and that's his, because you can pick up these, like the so-called academic books and stuff. It's just all jargon, right? And that's not getting your point across to the average man, right? So it's an ability in itself to be able to take complex ideas and explain them really simply.
Yeah. That takes intelligence and wisdom, doesn't it? Absolutely. And I think, I mean, for me, like you were saying before, like I would have all this information and sometimes I can express it and I'm like, excellent, I just can do it. But then other times I just write it out. Like for me, I love to write, and then I can sort of, when I'm doing that, I'm sort of expressing it to myself, like it's coming through to explain it to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I think writing helps retain it even more, right? But that's your own information. You've already got it.
True.
Yeah. But there's a lot of healing in writing as well.
Yeah.
That because it's connecting both hemispheres of the brain while you're doing it.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Yeah. And it's when you physically write and use pen as well, like I'm a massive advocate for that, writing down, what you want to affirm, what you want to create, but also just to let it all out. It's so powerful. So powerful.
So how much of 'cause you're an author, right? How many books you written?
I've written 2, and I definitely feel like I've got more to come, but I'll just trust the timing on that. And I think, that'll come at the right time. But and I've also created journals as well. So I've got the frequency shift journal, and that's an actual planner journal, but for people to help them reprogram their subconscious mind. So it's got tools in there for you to do that. So like you were saying before, like repetition is so powerful. It's almost like you're MK ultraing yourself for the positive. So if you want to create a better life, you want to raise your vibration, not in a fluffy way, but to, you know, align with the frequency of your highest potential, then you've got to do the work. Everything begins within, as we know. So then we do the work each day on our mindset, on and creating what it is we want to create. Same as what we would do if we go to the gym to build muscle. We're building our inner muscles to be all that we came here to be. So that's sort of what I love to do. So that's part of what I do as well.
So how did you first like get into that? Like what was your spark that got you into that stuff?
Like all the personal development kind of stuff.
Yeah,
like
well,
the
even like
frequency.
like I guess like and the subconscious mind.
Oh, well, the subconscious mind is, I was doing all this work and I've done so much work on myself, lots of healing, you know, wanting to know myself better, to be a better version. And I'd keep hitting this wall, and I couldn't understand why I couldn't break through. And then at some point along the way, I heard people talking about the subconscious mind. And for a lot of people, they probably knew about this earlier than me, and it doesn't matter because everything's divine timing anyway. So, and I think I had to have that actually to realize how powerful it actually was, and that the patterns and programs that we've got running in our subconscious mind from this life, but also our past lives, which is all happening right now, of course, but our ancestral things, trauma, all that sort of stuff is running how we operate in our lives. And those things can be blind to us because we might not be aware that those things are actually holding us back. And it can be around any topic. It can be money, fitness, worthiness, not feeling good enough, all of those things. And if you have a belief and a pattern or program that's running in your subconscious mind that says, I'm not good enough, then whether you're aware of it or not, you are operating from that frequency that I'm not good enough. So when you're out and about, like you might be having conversations with people thinking that person is better than you and they deserve more just because you've got that program running, which of course isn't true. It's just a pattern and program which you would have developed at a younger age or in the past, like I've said, but to protect yourself from perhaps a trauma that was happening to you when you were younger, or that your mother or your father experienced. So those traumas, and they can be big traumas or they can be little, and usually there's a core trauma to start off with, that then creates the life that you lead. Because you know, if something happens to you, say, let's just say someone picked on you at school and they weren't very nice to you, you might go, well, I never want to have that feeling again. So you create a pattern that you then work from. I'll people please, I'll be nice to everyone, and then that way I won't have these issues anymore, and that's how a people pleaser will be born. Or so you're operating from something that might have protected you in that moment, that you thought would be helpful, but then you know, as you go out in life later on, it's actually not protecting you to please everyone all the time, because then you're not pleasing yourself and you're not living your truth. So yeah, that's it just ignited something in me, and I realized that of course we create our own reality, and also being passionate about wanting to create a better world, and realizing of course that if we want to see humanity thrive, because everything begins within, we ourselves must thrive. And then that way that creates the ripple effect that spreads further and further and raises the vibration of the planet. So there's so much more depth to it than just, you know, let's make the world a better place.
Well, this is what I was saying. Yeah, that's interesting because I mean, so many people, and you'll see there's people that especially jump into activism and stuff too. There's so many, like, a lot of broken people, right? And it's all externalizing, you know, what they feel, right? They're jumping into that area to fill a void of But it's same with, like, you think people always say, "Oh, these NPCs are everywhere." All that is, it's like they're not actually connected to some AI hive mind. Maybe to some degree they are,
There might
but
be.
really, Well, they kind of are, but it's the subconscious is running them. And
Yes.
the ones that are the most NPC, right, is like their entire life is a subconscious program. That means they don't have any original thought, which means they don't have any original behavior. Everything is a programmed insert, not just from their own experiences, but then subconscious programming that's coming through through media and technology and everything else. Like when you speak to people, right, and they're just repeaters. They're just repeating certain mantras on the media, and then you'll see it in the spiritual community. You like have these people, and they're just repeating all these spiritual mantras that are like catchphrases. You know what I mean? But there's no meaning to any of it. And I'm like, have you ever thought about what that word means? Or I guess that's like without even doing the so-called here, the first step is like you got to have like some sort of self-evaluation of your
Yeah.
like I've like I mean obviously I've still got programs running everywhere, right? But
Yeah.
I'm like I look back and I go, fuck, I've like I do this all the time, or I do this, or like is that actually my belief? Is that something that's been instilled into me? Um yeah, heaps of things. But
Yeah.
and you've got to at least start it going, oh fuck, like yeah, why do I believe that? Why do I behave like this? Where most people would just accept, oh, this is what we do.
Well, it comes down to self-awareness, and it's the more aware you are of yourself, the more, and that comes back to getting to know yourself and who you really are. And, I think, and that is why everything does. It begins within. And when you can notice yourself in situations, see where you're triggered, and because when triggers are really a gift, because it's showing you what needs to be healed or looked at, or someone is just an asshole. You got to be discerning as well. But usually a trigger will give you some information about yourself, and it's reflecting back to you something that you don't really like about yourself, or some pain that you've haven't dealt with yet. I think, that can be such a gift as well. We're here to grow and expand and evolve. So of course, if we're wanting to align with the frequency of our highest potential as well, that's the work that I like to do. It means that it's not going to always be pretty and sexy. It's going to be like you'll be faced with the things that you need to face in order to grow to the next level.
Yeah.
Mm.
I've had a couple of triggers this week, actually.
Have you? What's been going on, Dale? Tell us all.
Not for a long time. Like there are these people in my chat. I never go into my chat, and they were just like, I don't know if they're agents or whatever. They divert every conversation to the Jewish problem, right?
Yes, I've seen some of your videos on that.
But that's
Yeah.
why they're like, call out these people. I'm like, and I think the reason it triggered me is because that's all I used to speak about years ago. That's
Yeah.
like, I went down that rabbit hole, and that's all I spoke about. And then I realized like that was like actually an instilled program into me, and I was completely off balance there. And then I'm seeing it in other people, and that's triggered me. But like one that I've spoke about a few times was I had like a lot of religious programming as a kid. Like we weren't heavily religious or anything, but I was just told about like heaven and God and all this sort of stuff, and I was beyond terrified when I was told I was going to heaven. I was like, that scared the shit out of me. Even though I was told it was a lovely place, that the way I was being explained was like it was like finite, and
Yeah.
then I would contemplate like, well, where did God come from? Where did I come from? But like I was never born. Like I knew this stuff when I was 4, but there was like a blockage there that it actually like it was beyond terrifying. And then I realized over time that was there was something there that was blocking my access to know that I was infinite. It was putting like a fear blocker there to like, so I would never know my infinite self, that I'd have to stay within this finite realm. It's hard to explain, like kind of what we were saying before, but like I don't think that program even come from this lifetime. I think that was triggered when I was a little kid by information that I was told. But to me, I think that's a deeply embedded program within within my soul imprint.
Do you think Like, I feel like that, and it kind of comes back to, well, you were talking about you're operating from fear, which is not the best level of consciousness for us to be able to operate and make best decisions from, but also the savior, like externalizing when really we're sovereign beings as well. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's I think that's kind of what it was, because like I knew even like when I was that young, like when I was 4, I knew that I was never created. I knew that that I was infinite. Even I remember thinking when I was 4 years old, I'm like, I've been here forever. This is like, it's not 4 years. 4 years is like a blip, and I'm like, no, like I know I've been here forever. But then people are telling me I was created by God, and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense, right? Well, like who created him? And I exist with him, but I exist beyond. And like this is sort of shit I was thinking about before I was going to bed, and it was just doing my head in. But yeah,
Was
it
this
was
when you were 4 years old, Dale? You were
4 years
thinking this?
old, and I was having like,
Crikey, I was thinking about, what I was doing tomorrow in the sandpit, but
I would do that too. But it was like when I didn't think about it until I went to bed. Every night
yeah.
when I went to bed, then I went, and then I used to pray to God every night. But I was never trained to do that. No one told me to do that.
Yeah.
It was I was just doing that myself. It's bizarre.
It is bizarre, isn't it? It's just, yeah.
So like why does like, I'm not just talking me, but like anyone, but how does a child come in and is thinking that? And these are the things that I've only sort of began to understand probably in the last 5 years, of like why I was actually thinking that as a kid. So where does that come from, right? That didn't come from my lived experience in the 4 years that I'd been alive.
No.
This was like this was like some innate knowing that I came in with.
Yeah. Which then goes into, like, when you said that, that got me thinking about the kids who remember like their past lives. Like, I've got a beautiful dear friend, and her kid was talking about how he chose her and what he was doing beforehand, and she sort of played along. It freaked her out, but she played along, and he just said, "Oh, you had a beautiful smile, that's why I chose you." And like a lot of the stuff that he was saying, like, there's just no way that he would know that sort of stuff. Like, that's one of the rabbit holes I've found so fascinating, and read books on it, and just things like that as well. Like, I know it's a little bit off tangent from what you're saying, but also, yeah, like I remember as well when I was younger, like I just remember being in this room and looking out the window, and it was like a cloudy day, thinking, oh, I had this feeling not of dread, but like heaviness, like I've got to do this again. You know what I mean? Like, I've got to, I don't know if it was this life again, or just be here again, or something, like, or it's like I knew what was ahead, like it was a bit of a road ahead. I don't know, but yeah. Have you ever had
Oh,
anything like that?
yeah, I mean, I was even with the whole COVID thing and that too. It's I mean, it's bizarre. The whole awakening started around the issue of vaccines, because yeah, like I said, like growing up, my mum was staunch against them forever. Like that was like ingrained into me that these things are bad. You don't ever put them in your body. Mum was, she was always researching, and we used to go to a homeopath and stuff that was used to do detoxification and all that sort of thing. And then I was like, when the pandemic started, like, because I'd said for years, like they're going to vaccinate the world, and that I'd already made that decision that once that came, that under no circumstance would I'd ever take a needle under any circumstance. So then,
Yeah.
when that time came, it was just an easy decision, like, and it didn't matter like what I had to lose. That decision was already made. But I remember at that time, and the mask was the biggest trigger ever for me. I was just like, no, I'm not doing any of this. I'm not playing along with any of this. And I was still working at the time. They said, well, you got to start wearing a mask to school. And I just emailed my boss and I said, I'm not doing that. There's absolutely no way do you know what I mean? I will not do that. Like, I didn't lose my job straight away. I ended up getting an exemption. But the reason that I mentioned that is because when that time came, something inside of me said, you've been here before. And
Mm,
not even like, it's not even like a past life that was similar. It's like, I remember being at this time in this place in this exact same position. I remember this,
mm,
and I'm not doing it again. And I had done past life regressions, and the theme was the same every time.
yeah.
It was like um, I had to do something to get along or progress or not be physically hurt, and
Mhm.
I would fight it and fight it and fight it. But then the pressure got too much, and I'd cave. I'd always have to cave. And my past lives, and then I always lived in sorrow, and I always died of a heart attack, right? So it was it was kind of weird because, and I'm just like, this was like, I don't know, this information was flooding into me, and I'm like, I'm not like, my whole existence for this time and place now is just to remember my sovereignty, and
Mm,
I'm not giving that up.
yeah.
It was that steadfast that like some people mates just said, well, just put a mask on. Like, what does it matter? Like, to go to the
Mm,
supermarket. I'm like, I'm not doing it.
mm,
um yeah, and I guess that's the whole situation we're in now, was like just the cowardice of people. But people go, oh, if they knew more, that they shouldn't do it. But I'm like, well, they don't really. If
mm,
they really know, if you really know what it's about, and it's like, it's a to you come back to your own sovereignty. If they were already aligned with that, then it would never happen.
mm. And do
So
you
it's
think
just,
as oh, go, sorry.
no, you go.
I was going to say, do you think as well, because we live in a universe or reality that has the law of polarity, and like where duality, like you've got to have players that are playing different parts of the game in order for it to make sense.
Have
Like
to.
even though,
Yeah.
yeah, like even though, like you've talked about before as well, like the pendulum swung so far one way, and then we're swinging so far back the other way. But really, it's about being centered as well.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you were in my course when I kind of like spoke
Yeah.
because it's yeah, if people just get the idea that the universe is a universe of contrast, so it's just contrasting expressions. So, and then if you go on the concept of a synthetic simulation within the universe, then that has to express itself. There has to be a contrast of expressions
Mm,
to play out that scenario, because there needs to be friction required. Because there's no friction, it would have just been easy.
yeah.
If everyone understood it and everyone woke up at the same time, there's no resistance. There's no learning. So everyone at that level, it's just all role playing, really.
Mm. Yeah. When you said that, it got me thinking about Star Wars. Do you watch Star Wars? Do you ever watch any?
Yeah, but not for ages. I did. Yeah, I have watched them. Yeah,
The
I never saw the last one actually. Did you see the
oh,
last?
the very last one. Oh,
Yeah,
okay. But I think I don't know which one this one was in, but it was one of the newer ones, which would be before. But they were talking about oh, they were playing chess with like the live hologram, that's another thing to chat about. But they were playing chess, and then what happened? They were talking about who does the who does the oh fuck, I can't remember. The Imperial Pints, like, does all this, creates all the spaceships and everything for the dark side, and then the guys like, well, they create them for the light side as well. So it's not like the same people are yeah, behind it all. Yeah, didn't articulate that very well. Maybe one I'll need to write out, but you know what I'm
I
saying.
know what you mean. But I mean, this goes in the concept with like that I've spoken about before. That within the synthetic construct, you must have polar expressions of the distortion, but
Yeah,
in because people always say it's dark versus light and all these mantras again, right?
yeah.
Because you can't have the dark without the light, and you can't have the light without the dark, and you can't create vibration. If everything's to the light, there's no vibration. You need the polarity to create vibration, to create light. And um and, and that's what I see, and that's what I see as part of the synthetic matrix, that it has to provide um the light to the polar opposite of the distorted dark, but it's a distortion as well
Mm,
to the light side. And that's kind of what I've tried to express, like probably in the last 6 months a bit more, that there is yeah, people call it the false light, but to me I just see it as a distortion. And it's, if you go back to like what you were saying, that I mean, we see it in the 3D level expression of how they'll fund both sides of any war, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same concept, but on a spiritual level, that there is negative beings that are feeding off dark energy of fear and loosh and all the rest of it. And then there's beings of the light that are feeding off worship and adoration to the other side. But at the top, you have the same centralized entity that is actually controlling both. And that's basically, like, if you look at, you know, God created Lucifer because Lucifer is, because it's a polar expression of itself. It is the same being. And that's what I've seen with the distortion now too. It's very blatant to me now, like with the trans stuff and the open Satanism that's everywhere, that a lot of that, it's they're showing you all this, you know, evil that's the complete distortion on the dark side, because this central figure wants to pull you over to the light side. And it doesn't matter if you're on either side of the distortions, it's still feeding off you. I mean, like, if people want to get into it, he's got a bit of a different concept of it, but David Icke's latest book is really good. It does go into,
is that The Trap?
Yeah, The Trap. Have you read it?
No, I haven't read it yet. No, I've got to get onto it.
It's really good. But yeah, he goes through within the Gnostic texts and stuff. And I'm not saying I didn't formulate this belief off David Icke. I was reading his book Gobsmacked, that he's finally gone in this same direction that I've been saying for a long time. I mean, and he has in lots of ways, but yeah, he was really starting to take on the entire sort of spiritual hierarchy and spiritual realm, and that these light beings and the dark beings are actually playing out a war, and they are legitimately fighting each other, but it's within a synthetic construct. I don't know if I went probably got a complete tangent there, but the whole point is that don't be pulled either way. And if you're getting fed off through fear, or if you're worshipping something, you're still giving your power away, and you haven't learned sovereignty, and that sovereignty is in the middle to almost be an observer of both.
And and that comes back to yourself as well, observing how you are in any, because all of that is happening within still. And so when we get pushed and pulled, it's an opportunity for us to see where we need to sort of come back into balance as well. And when you talk about the synthetic, you say synthetic matrix, don't you? And then would you call it the organic matrix, or would you just call it pure consciousness? What would you call it?
It's a hard one. It's like, I mean, I like to go like off what George Cavassalis says, that he just calls it he calls a universal creator, and so it's basically that we're in a universal construct of this being. So there is one being that is the creator of this universe, and that includes every billions of multi-dimensional natures within that universe. Like, it's beyond comprehension how big it is. But that you exist outside of that, within the infinite. But so as far as that, you have a light-based construct of the universe, that is an organic universe. But because the universe is contrasted expressions, that because there's an organic universe, there must be a synthetic within it, because that's the polar opposite. And then the synthetic universe is just a replication of the organic. It's a counter mimic. And that goes into all the Yalda Bayoff kind of stuff in the Gnostic text, that it says that, you know, the demiurge cannot, which is the false creator within that realm, that it cannot create anything new, but it's a master of counter mimicry. So it's just basically, it's a being that is trying to replicate the creator itself. And then at some level, we have decided or made a contract to enter into this synthetic universe with the false creator. So it takes away victimhood when you come from that understanding that you've actually entered into the synthetic realm. And part of that is, I guess, because to me the whole universe is all about experience. So if you want to do something or complete the universe and fully understand it, then to understand what the synthetic is, or even like, you don't even need to look at it as synthetic, but that you can have an organic and then a technological based construct. So to understand technology, you have to experience it. You have to be in its construct.
Yeah.
And even the word synthetic, because that kind of comes to say that it's not real.
Yeah.
Because if we say something synthetic, it means it's not real, but it is real.
It is real. Yeah.
It's a part of the universe that is replicated the creator, but it's done it based on technology. So it's like an entity it's like a technological based entity. But to say it's synthetic is not really true either. It is, because it's real. It's a real experience. And I just want to say that, like, so the organic and the synthetic do exist symbiotically together. So you're actually within both. So I don't see it as any type of essential or anything that needs to be taking place. It's just you attuning to the natural energy. That I see is kind of like permeating into this realm. Sorry, I just got my phone ringing.
Yeah, no, go for it.
Anyway, mate, fuck. Although I don't know if it makes any sense, but I was.
No, it does. It does. I think I mean, it's just, there's so many things. I said to you before we started, I had like, when we chatted last week, like, what are we going to talk about? And I said, shit, I don't know. So like, I'd have these like downloads.
I thought we were talking about movies, didn't we?
Yeah. Well, do you want to hear what the list is? A big list. I'll just go through it. You ready?
Yeah. Are these your movies? Your favorite?
Hey,
no, your topics. Okay.
Yeah. But movies. Oh no, let's go into movies then. Divergent is definitely hands down one of my absolute favorites, and the whole series. I remember, because for me, like, I sort of back in the day, I kind of knew stuff was going on, and then I kind of did life for a while, and then didn't really dive down the rabbit holes too much. And then when I did start diving down the rabbit holes, one night I just happened to be at home and Divergent was on, and I was just watching it, and my mouth was just dropping, like the amount of truth bombs that was coming through, that was just so synchronistic at that time as well too. So it was phenomenal. And so for me, it was really powerful watching that, but also just looking at all the different movies that have so much truth in plain sight, because I mean, it's there. Like Back to the Future has so much in it, so many things, Men in Black, we were saying, Inception, movie Lucy. Have you watched the movie Lucy? Yeah. Star Wars just has, to me, it has so many layers, and the spiritual aspect of it all, and the Force, just being the interconnected. To me, that's consciousness that we're all a part of. Lord of the Rings. Did I say Men in Black?
You said Men in Black. Yeah, we spoke.
I think because that was recent. I watched it again recently.
Yeah, because didn't I mention to you? What did you say? Men in Black 2. Men in Black 2.
Yes. What were we saying? Oh fuck, I can't remember now. But you said something really good about
the Men in Black 2. She's kind of like an octopus, kind of like creature thing too. But yeah, Men in Black 1 is the whole search. They're searching for the galaxy, right?
Yeah.
And they find it's all a microcosm, because that there's a big truth in that too, because of what it's telling you. They're searching for this galaxy out there, and the whole time the galaxy was this little ball sitting on the cat.
Yes.
Because they were told the galaxy was on Orion's belt, and Orion was actually the cat, and the belt was around its neck. So it was, that, I mean, there's heaps in that movie, but that's the main giveaway.
Yeah.
Is that everything's compressed realities. There's no out there and no in there. And Inception's the exact same concept, because I spoke about the hero's journey too before, how you descend down, and that's what they do with Inception. They go dream within a dream within a dream, or you could look at it as reality compressed into it, reality compressed into reality, compressed into reality. And then when he's so far deep, it's like 100 years, and that's like an hour in the base reality.
Yeah.
He slides his way through. And if you remember how they actually trigger out of the realities a lot of the time, they have to have like a click or something that snaps them in. It's usually water.
Yes.
Like So again, and this is what Ike was talking about in his book, that the natural fluid-like energy that he calls from the upper aeons outside of the synthetic construct is the base of fluid and water.
Mm.
And so that's mirrored in Inception as well too.
Yeah.
But the whole point is, so if you looked at like the last dream that they go into, that they're in for like an hour, I know he's in for like hundreds of years, that it all happens in an instant and he pops out. But the learning that he'd had in that realm for 100 years is real, that he now brings back into, if you looked at his base reality, is that's his soul. So he's integrated all that heavy experience that on that level is just a second.
Yeah.
That's what I think we're doing at the, because we're not, I don't see human beings at the lowest form of evolution. We're at the highest point because we're so compressed down. If you looked at that as the last dream, that's what the human beings are.
Mm.
We're in the highest densely conformed part of the universe. So there's the most learning that occurs on that. And then when you pop out, it's eons of time we've been down here, but the learning's instant on that level.
Yeah. It's huge, isn't it? It just blows your mind.
It's like, I love that. Yeah, but Divergence.
Oh, love Divergent. And also like one thing I noticed, because I watched Men in Black the other day, just when they open the lockers and so at the end of the movie they open the locker door. One of the movies, they open the locker and those little creatures are in there.
Yeah.
But at the end of the movie they open the locker and it's like another Men in Black kind of world, like we're in a locker, if that makes sense, which I guess is another way of looking at the dream.
Yeah, it's the same concept again, isn't it?
Yeah. Always found that interesting. But yeah, Divergent, I love that. Lucy's really good too. I feel like every time I watch a movie, the depth gets more, even though you know what's there, you kind of like, because you've been I guess around the block, so to speak, like your level of consciousness is raised and you feel like you can understand things on an even deeper level than you did before, because like everything has layers. And that's one thing, like I really resonate with what you've said, like level of that's one of the things I've got written down. Basically it just says consciousness and level of consciousness and layers, and like understanding things from where you're at. It's like walking upstairs, isn't it? Like when you take the first step on a staircase, like say the staircase is your level of consciousness, like the way that you see things and the frequency that you're at that point, like that's how you see things. But you walk a few more steps up and you've now got a different vantage point, a different view, and now you've got that depth of wisdom and knowledge there too. So you make decisions based on that as well, like from where you're coming from.
You wonder, you never have like the arrogance to like, because when you get like some new understanding, and then you can never have the arrogance to say you fully understand it, because like in fight, it's like watching the movie thing. You go back and watch it again and you pick up so much more. And that's like a trap that we fall into. They're like, you have some new epiphany and now you fully get it.
Yeah. You totally don't.
Like I'm kind of like that now. I'm like, yeah, I've fucking worked it out. I know. But there's always something new that's just going to slap you in the face in 5 years that you haven't even considered.
Yeah, totally. And that's the beauty of it too. Then you think, so like I think we've had this conversation in the past before, like where we're at now, and we think how far we've come to this point, what our level of understanding is. Like just imagine 1 year, but 10 years, like it's like,
I mean, there's only two ways you can learn anything. You can do it academically through reading and researching stuff, or it's lived experience. And for me, I know like when I've traveled and stuff, I've learned more about myself and about the world and about other people just by traveling. More than you ever would in a book or anything like that.
Yeah, I'm definitely a learn as you go person. Like for me, like I want to be able to not be told how to do it, work out how to do it, and do it like in a way that works for me, and fallen down many times, but to be able to get back up, and then that's how you grow as well, and that's how you get the wisdom, that's how you get the compassion as well, not only for other people going through the same thing but also yourself, because you've been in that place or a similar place to others, and you can get it, you know?
Yeah, that's it. Well, that's experience, isn't it? You
Yeah.
learn from the experience. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so cool. Nature of reality. All right, here we go. Nature of reality, AI, consciousness and layers, synchronicity, story of the whale, holographic universe, infinity, book you are currently reading, I'd love to know, SRA, holographic blood, something that I was learning about last night on my walk. That was fascinating. If you were to explain what's going on in a nutshell in the world, could you? I've been asked that question before, and like how that. And yeah, free will, why are we here? So they're all the things I had written down, and a few other things. So anything that jumps out at you, Dale, grab onto it.
Well,
Run with it.
I covered like a bit of that. I'm reading like 2 books at the moment. I've got I had a friend, Mish, that has sent me her book. So I'm like, I was 2 chapters into that.
Yep.
It's like that was really caught my eye. That's good. I'll share that when I've finished reading it. So that's her first time reading a book. But I've bought Anarchy Lucas's book as well. That's 7 chapters into that. So she's child abuse survivor from the elite Belgium child abuse ring back in the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd love to get her on for a chat, but I won't do that until I finish her book.
I feel like I've watched. She's done interviews.
Yeah, she's
before.
done quite a few. Yeah,
I think she was one of the first that, if I'm thinking about the same person, that I watched a 4-part series on. It's pretty confronting for people who wouldn't have heard of that sort of stuff before. But yeah, it was the amount of stuff that she talks about. I mean, anyone in that's been affected by that and tells their story, it's pretty full on. But yeah, it'd be awesome if you could chat to her. That would be a great conversation.
yeah, it'd be cool. I mean, I'm like, I was keen to like set it up, but I'm like, I should read her book before I consider. And like, that depends on whether she says yes or not. But hopefully,
Yeah.
I don't know. What were the other ones you mentioned, like AI?
Yeah.
Um,
Synchronicities, story of the whale. These are just different things that pop down. This is how my brain works. I'll just write it down. What's that one? Oh, the van. I wrote down the van that you're in. For people who maybe don't know yeah, but yeah, does any of that spark a thought?
I mean, I could go. It depends, like what I want to talk about. I mean, the whale one's interesting because, like, this is what I mentioned before that I don't. I don't know if you're the same. Like when you write your books, you said that you'll see like what happens. You can't pick what the next thing that's going to come in or the topic that's going to come up. And this is why I was getting triggered on my chat too. The people going, why don't you talk about this? Why don't you talk? I'm like, I don't dictate what I'm going to talk about. It's like when something comes up and then I kind of run with it. And with the whale stuff, yeah, it went back to when I when I went out to Central Australia last year, and one of the elders told me that the story of the whale there. And this is what we were saying before too, that your level of understanding, like, because I fully thought that I got it, what he was talking about. And he talks about this story of the whale coming in from the cosmos and hitting this square-like object that he said was the Earth, but then out of that popped the sun, the Earth, and the moon. And because I was familiar with Velikovsky and Wallace Thornhill and their sort of work on the like the fall of man and the wars in the solar system and the destruction of Moldak, which was a Earth-like planet, water-like planet that supposedly, they reckon certain comets up there have water structures in them and whales and all this stuff. I'm like, oh, it's kind of like making sense, right? It's kind of talking about the destruction of the planet and then it related to the other stuff I'd heard with it, like tribal legends in Africa and Central America and what they said about the moon. And then it related to what the Gnostics said, how all the outer planets were actually part of the synthetic construct and that only the inner planets were part of the original organic and that there was some kind of shift. Anyway, so I looked at here. So what he was saying, I'm like, yeah, okay, this is like some cataclysm that took place. And even the comet was represented as a whale because it's a tail, right?
Yeah.
All this kind of stuff. And he said that it matched the alignment on 24th of June 2022 last year, and that this was going to be when this alignment happened, the whale begins to sing. And then people look at tribal legends and stuff and they go, oh, it's all like, it's fucking mythology. The whale doesn't sing because of a plant. And it's like, well, is the whale, are we really talking about, like, I think it's both. Is it the whale in the ocean, or is it a representation and symbology of something else? And then it clicked to me recently after reading Ike's book that he was talking again at the fluid-like energy of the organic universe. And I'm like, well, what are whales, right? They're in, and they're mammals that live in water. They're kind of like, they're weird creatures. Does that explain the whale coming in from outside the organic construct, and the singing and the alignment of beginning to hear the whale sing is us attuning to the natural fluid-like energy or frequency that lives outside the synthetic construct? And then I started looking at, there was another video I come across that someone sent to me about a year ago, and that didn't make a lot of sense until recently as well. And it was a whole group of tribal nations that they brought together to sing out the whale dreaming. And the story of the whale is the whale came out from the ocean, and this is like the creation of humanity. The whale came out of the ocean and walked onto land. And I'm like, well, that makes the same sense too if you're talking about that we came from a fluid-like organic construct into the physical realm. And that's what they say, the demiurge is the king of the 3D realm, or Lucifer, right? And Saturn itself that creates physical reality. So I'm like, well, that makes perfect sense if you understand the synthetic mimic or the satanic inversion too. What they've done with merchant law is that when the boat comes in, that births the product.
Yeah.
That creates physical reality. And why would they base an entire legal construct on merchant law that's hijacking our natural energy? It's because that is the story of humanity coming from the fluid-like energy into the physical realm, and that's why they've had to mimic and hijack that. It's like, yeah, and I mean, none of this I was looking into. There was just like, and this goes into synchronicity too. Once something comes in, and then it's just coming from everywhere, and it's like, if people are like, have you seen this? Have you seen this? Have you seen? And then someone sent me the Linkin Park video, and I'm like, wow, because that's even like, it's got, he comes out at the start, and there's like a pendulum that's telling him that he's entered into duality.
Yeah.
It's even got the Sophia figure that he's sitting on the crown of Sophia, and there's a whale that just keeps floating around in the background like a distant. And I'm like, you couldn't put that any more perfectly symbolically, because near the end, the whale starts to makes things more abundant. So he's starting to connecting with the energy. And I think that's what, to me, that's what the whole awakening is. I think there's this technological construct that we're in is starting to break down. I think this does it. It's done it many times. And as it's starting to break down, all it is we're starting to connect with our higher self, or whatever you want to call it, or the fluid-like energy, or the whale. That what we're seeing now too is that's what the breakdown of artificial, of like trying to create another synthetic construct within the synthetic construct now that they're trying to do with things like the metaverse.
Yeah.
Because this one's breaking down, so they're having to put us into another compression. Because that's what I spoke about before, that within the holographic universe, that they're all compressed realities. But if you've got a synthetic false universe, that because it's mimicking the organic, it's also making compressions as well.
Yeah.
So basically, it's like a race to put us into another synthetic compression, or we stay centered with nature and just connect with that.
Do you think I mean, because do you see like a two world split with that happening, or do you see everyone going in that way, or do you see a big reset happening that gets talked about as well, like as in,
I mean, the split's already obvious. You can see
the split's obvious. Yeah.
And I don't think, like people are like thinking like some weird sort of split that we're going to like visually see. And it's like, it's all energetic. It's already, it's there anyway, when you're trying to communicate with someone that is hooked to that, like all that.
You're on different frequencies. You can't have a conversation.
It's already, so it's already happening. I think that split.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Yeah, but I don't see any ascension as us turning into an instant light body, or like all those kind of things. I just see it as like we start naturally attuning to what the organic universe actually is, and like stuff will start to break down, and that's all happening now. It's truth's coming out. We're looking at the world in a different way. That is just allowing that frequency to come in. I guess that, and maybe that's some people that are leaving this realm, is we're all heading down that path, and then other people aren't attuning to it, so they're exiting.
Yeah. You've spoken about that before as well, I think, a long time ago, talking about people exiting. And
I mean, I don't know, but
yeah. I mean, and all you can really do is, I mean, all we can do is learn to tap into our intuition as best as possible. Follow that. I mean, like you do with when you do your videos and you're creating from what you're guided to, for want of a better term, like higher self or all-knowing self is, and just speaking from that place. So when we tap into our intuition and are more discerning in this time that we're in, or any time we're in, the more of us that come back to that, the more, I guess, the more natural that we're living. I didn't articulate that very well either, but you know what I'm trying to say.
But it's all the intuition too, because even with AI and stuff, it's all operating within the mind.
Yeah.
And like the pursuit of consciousness is a big one, because like it's all the pursuit of knowing through the mind. And you can see it even like within Freemasonry and the Catholic Church and stuff. It's all very pineal gland focused, and like, within ancient Egypt and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
But that's to me, it's the intuition. It's that's the knowing. I mean, you're supposed to operate between the intellect and the heart, but I think it's that simple.
And you can't explain knowing. Like when you know something, like when someone will say, well, how do you know that? And you can't explain the knowing. Like it's just that inner, when you deeply connect or resonate with something, you just know, like it doesn't have words. It's not a belief. It's just a knowing, isn't it?
We hang shit on my mum all the time too, because we're like, she's
Your
like,
poor mum.
we're like, oh fuck, here we go. It's the knowing again. It's the oh, I just know. We're like, you don't know.
It's true though, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, I know. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
But actually, do you know, like I've mentioned this before, and it's true. Like people who play sport will know this. It's like when I've said like before, when if I'm doing a video or whatever, sometimes I won't even know what I've kind of said, because I don't like to say channeling, but there's something else coming through, right?
yeah.
A lot of the time too, and this is why, if you look at the AFL, it's such a classic case of satanic inversion, like how they've taken out, because there's a natural flow of the game and how the game should be played, right? And I look at that game as like that's a game of the creator. There's like, to me, I'm serious, like same as soccer and that too. And those that have played it will know, there's like, when you get into that flow of the game, you are like, there's no time. You're not thinking about where you're going to run. You're not, and like when you start to play really well, you actually start just reading the game. You're running to the right spot. You're like, it's like that with any sport. When you get into that flow, that's like real spirituality and practice, and particularly in a team sport, because you're all kind of like moving together, and there's a non-verbal communication that's going on, that people just know where to, like, like with the Cracker Brothers and stuff like that, the Cracker Brothers used to always kick it to each other, and they'd always find each other, and there was like this intuitive understanding of how each other was playing that. That's why I like to look at people say, oh, why do you talk about the AFL when all this shit's going on? I'm like, that is like one microcosm, like we're talking before, like Men in Black. That's one microcosm of the expression of this distortion of what of how they've taken over, influence, and destroyed a spiritual game.
Yeah. But you're right with the inflow thing. Like I mean, I've played netball as a little tacker, but even then, like when you get into that flow of the game, it's just like everyone knows where to go. And that, I guess that's when you're in the flow of life, the game of life, and you just know where to go, things pour in, like you were saying before.
Yeah,
you have
that's
these
what I was getting to.
synchronicities, you know, everything, and you know you're in alignment with what, you know, you're supposed to be doing. And then if something happens that then sort of kicks you off that, or you find yourself off it, something will bring you back in to keep you in that flow. Because I guess being in that, I mean, that's the ultimate, isn't it? Is being aligned and in flow with what it is that we're here to do, whatever that is for each of us as well.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I've even noticed, like, when I've done like interviews and stuff like that too. Like, if I come in, particularly if I don't know the person that well, and I'm like, I'm thinking. As soon as I start thinking, I'm like,
You're in trouble.
it's shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
starting to, like, you're thinking or formulating how you might answer something, or like, yeah, but when it just flows, that's when the magic happens.
It is, isn't it? It's the magic. It is, and that is the magic, being in flow. People talk about it in so many different ways. Like to me, it's just being in alignment and just allowing, observing, but still taking action as well. Like if there's something that you want to do, still taking that action and being aligned while doing it, you know?
Well, if you're not going with the flow, if you're not taking the action, because it's like the intuition should dictate the
What the
action. I
action?
mean, it's easier said than done, right? Like,
Yeah.
life gets in the way, and it's
Yeah.
like, but yeah, it's more like blocking out all the questions as to why, or should I, or that doesn't feel right, or it doesn't make logical sense. To, yeah, no, that feels right.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. And I heard someone say this the other day, and you know, when you just go, I can't believe I didn't think of that. But like when they spoke about the law of attraction, and the word attraction has the word action in it. Like you don't just sit there and do nothing, you know, you've got to take the action.
Yeah, exactly. And that's been the problem with a lot of the new age, because there's core spiritual understandings, but it's a real imbalance focused on the unseen world. Very little emphasis on action.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. It's I don't know how long we've been talking for. We've done a good stint, haven't we? We've been going well. Is there anything you want to chat about before I just tell everyone where they can find you and all that jazz? Because that felt like 5 minutes, but it hasn't been 5 minutes. I could chat to you for days, Dale.
That's all right. Yeah, well, we can do another one if you want.
Yeah, that'd be great.
No, I haven't. No, that's it. It's pretty good.
Feeling pretty sweet.
Yeah,
pretty good.
Sweet.
So where can people find you? I know, but tell everyone, and for everyone watching, I will link that all in the description as well, so you can just click through. But take it away, Dale.
Best place is probably on Telegram. I post everything on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say Telegram. That's like the go-to. I'll put pretty much everything on there.
Yeah.
But I'm doing we're doing like a 12-week conference, me and Madeline Doherty too.
Oh, awesome.
So yeah, this is going to be really good actually. So those who don't know Madeline, she's pretty cool, and
she's awesome. Yeah.
I just like, I mean, I wouldn't do this with most people. They're kind of I just wouldn't be. But I've always aligned with most of what what she sort of speaks about, and definitely all of what she stands for. But yeah, anyway, there's going to be a heap of guests and stuff. So if people want to check out her page too, maybe you want to put that in.
Yeah, send me the link for that. Yeah.
Sky to Earth. So we're starting that next month.
Awesome.
And, that'll be cool.
Awesome. All right, I'll put all of that in the description. That will be fantastic, and then so people can just link through to that. So really, Dale, it's just been bloody awesome chatting with you. Thank you so much for hanging out.
Do it, Nereeda.
Yeah, finally, awesome. Good to have the chin wag. We'll definitely do it again. That'll be awesome. But yeah, so aside from that, everyone, thank you so much for watching and tuning in. Like I said, you can chat and connect with Dale on his Telegram page, and I'll put the link to the 12-week course with Madeline as well. And yeah, and everything else will be in the description or the show notes of the podcast. So thanks again for being here, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks, Dale.
Thanks, Nereeda. See ya.